Well, good evening, good evening, good evening. Thanks everybody for joining again. Another Tuesday night. Really looking forward to tonight. I know Brian's running a couple minutes behind, but I wanted to kind of get going a little bit early. I was sitting here and I figured, what the heck? Let's get this show on the road. I figured, hey, you guys are sitting here waiting patiently, and I wanted to kind of jump on here, say hi to a few of you guys before Brian got in here. So hopefully everybody's having a great Tuesday as much as you possibly can. Still early in the week. But let me say hi to a few people. Bolivar Arroyo, thanks for jumping in. Yes, indeed, fantastic ride that Sagamore is doing. What else we got? Big Vic's in the house. How's it going, buddy? The boss, Katie Turk. How's it going? Top Dog, good to see you, buddy. What do we got? Roy, how's it going, sir? We got. I know Justin was in here. Justin, how's it going, buddy? Dougie, good to see you. Cheers. JG, of course, always in here as well. Appreciate it, bud. The kitty here. How's it going, kitty? All right. So anyway, hopefully everyone's got maybe, if it's not some Sagamore poured, hopefully you've got a nice little pour and you're ready to kind of settle in for tonight. So like I said, Brian will be on here shortly. We're just kind of getting home and getting a few things set, so he'll jump on here in a second, and as soon as he does, we'll bring him on and kind of get going. So I would say for me, Sagamore is probably in the last probably couple of years even been a kind of a fan favorite of mine. I really appreciate the passion, the energy, all of that really behind everything that it is that they do. Their willingness to work with everybody. We've done our picks. Dusty's done his picks. I know we're probably going to work on another one, I'm sure, at some point this year. We will be actually, and I'll kind of go over a few other things that we've got going on with Sagamore as well. But a lot of great things that they've gotten there. I mean, their distillery, where they are kind of on the bay and everything right there, or inlet, or whatever you want to call that there. Absolutely fantastic. So how's it going, Marky? Good to see you, bud. Oh, what else we got here? Timmy, good to see you, bud. Thanks for jumping in. So yeah, tonight will be fun. I just wanted to kind of, like I said, get going a little bit earlier than normal, and just kind of say hi to you guys. Hopefully everyone's having, like I said, a decent Tuesday for the most part. Whatever you're sipping on, leave a chat. Love to hear that. So, Justin, I wish we'll hammer Brian as much as we possibly can to do something different and unique. We may end up with something similar, I don't know, to that, but we're going to work on something for our May event that we've got going on out at the distillery. We'll probably touch on that a little bit later on, but yeah, tonight will be a lot of fun. I love Brian. I mean, he does a great job. I mean, he's a great guy first and foremost. That just happens to run an incredible whiskey brand, and it's kind of a match made in heaven for all of us. It's not every day that you can kind of have these relationships with guys like that, and they want to kind of interact with you. They're interacting with us as whiskey fans, and we're excited to speak with them because of what it is that they do. So it kind of goes both ways. So we really appreciate it. So what's we got here? So, hey, Eric, how's it going, bud? Good to see you. Yes, happy Whiskey Tuesday. Nothing really rhymes with Whiskey Tuesday, does it? Tuesday, Two Pour Tuesday. I don't know. I'd have to maybe come up with something. I have to see. But all right. What else has everyone got poured right now? I know it's 7, 8 o'clock for some of you. Maybe lunchtime for the West Coasters. I know it's a little early for West Coast people, but. All right, what do you got, Brad? So we'll spit on some driftless single barrel cask. All right, maybe a Mash and Journey one, maybe. I don't know. If not, join the club. So anyway, so yeah, let's so tonight I've got a few. I mean, I think I've got maybe, I don't want to say everyone that Sagamore is. There you go, Mike. I like how you think. To a Tuesday. There you go. I can get on board with that. So but I've got an awful lot of them, and I'll tell you what, I mean, what Sagamore is doing, and again, I'll let Brian kind of talk a little bit more about that part of it, but I just think wholeheartedly what it is that Sagamore is doing is just it's tremendous. And I mean the finishes that they have, just their everywhere from their base whiskey, which I think is like an 84 proofer, their cast strength, all their reserve series, they just do such a great job with everything. So how's it going, D? Good to see you, bud. They just overall are producing incredible whiskey, and as much as we can do to get the word out even more to people about what it is that Sagamore is doing, the better. I think it's still, for some reason, a brand, and maybe because it's not Kentucky or maybe not MGP, that still kind of flies a little bit under the radar. However, I do think it's kind of, starting to work its way up. And you guys, maybe you'll agree that it's starting to become much more popular. There's a lot more people outside of just like all of us that are really, really enjoying what it is that Sagamore does. So, I can never say enough about that. So they do an absolutely incredible job with their whiskeys. So yeah, tonight I'll be sipping on a couple things. Obviously, this factored into my top whiskeys of 2022, and rightfully so. And it did for a lot of other people as well. What they did with that sherry finish was incredible. Last year, I was kind of forgot all about the 8-year, but it factored, I believe, into my top 21 whiskeys of the year because I really enjoyed it that much. So, all right, Everett, what do you got? So Sagamore Cognac finished. Yeah, it's fantastic. Absolutely love it. So what do you got here, Keith? Evening all. My driftless will finally come tomorrow. All right, good. Well, hopefully you'll enjoy those. Yeah, Dusty's pick was really, really tremendous. I mean, we had a good time doing the selection of that, and that was a home run. That was a home run rye that he got. So, cheers, Benny. Good to see you, bud. There's the man. How's it going, Troy? Pop them, don't watch them. If you have not subscribed to Mr. Troy's channel, pop them, don't watch them. Make sure you do so before you leave tonight. What's Troy got? Sagamore starting to gain steam. I honestly think it was their prices out of the gate and being rye only with people. Yeah, that's maybe. And I was going to kind of get into that a little bit with Brian tonight as to, I understand the rye, the tie to rye whiskey for them. Because of, the Maryland, thing and all of that. And I understand why they did that, but that will be interesting to kind of hear their perspective on, why so much rye out of the gate, and then maybe not even kind of either sourcing a bourbon or anything along those lines. They really stuck to the straight and narrow with the rye and kind of went at that. So, there's my man, Kelsey. How's it going, Kelsey? Good to see you, bud. Appreciate you being in here. Eric, another Baltimore man. So good to see you in here, buddy. Tolga Durham. How are you, Tolga? Will the port finish be a general release in the future? That will be a question we can ask Brian. Let me write that one down so I don't forget that. I don't know. I know that's part of the reserve series. Well, let's ask them. So will port finish be a, what did we, there he is. How are you doing?
Really good, man.
Are you calm, relaxed? You got a little bit of zen to you yet? There you go.
There.
I knew I had to give you a moment. I knew I had to give you a moment to settle down. I mean, hey, at the end of the day, we all know rushing around is no fun. We do it far too often.
Yeah, we do. We do it way far too often. It's just like we've accepted that's the way we're supposed to operate, but it's just, you get every now and then caught up in a good conversation, and you can't deny a good conversation. And I was like, I'm late for another good conversation. And I just and he's a good man, and it was an amazing channel. And so I got to go. And so here we are.
Well, hey, I appreciate that. I appreciate you being on tonight. And like I was saying, before you came on, I've said it, I think, to you even before. I mean, one of the things I've always appreciated about you was the just being down to earth and allowing, giving us the time of day to do these things, and just kind of being able to shoot the what and be like on that level, and just still maintain a great attitude and have a great time with everything. I mean, I've come to appreciate it. I mean, as much as anybody. So, I mean, thank you for just all of that.
Well, that is, well, I one, thank you for the opportunity and flattered to be here. But two, like, I don't know if everybody realizes, like, it's just like, maybe they have because they've seen me occasionally chiming in on a chat or something like this, but it's after a long day's work. I love coming into these streams and these channels, and it's just like, maybe because I just love whiskey, but it's just like, and I love the people you meet in the whiskey community, and like at a whiskey fest or wherever it may be, at a local watering hole. And so like, it's just fun to come in here, and I've gotten to know some of the people, which is great. And it actually is like, even though I guess I do whiskey for a living, like, it allows me to like finally, like, I feel very separated from work life and personal life when I come into this community. And it's amazing, like, exhale and just like, oh man, I'm surrounded with just a bunch of great people that love whiskey, and we're not going to talk like anything but like positive fun. And it's great when people disagree. That's the beauty of the whiskey community, is like, yeah, I don't always agree with that, and maybe that one's not for me, but like, there's something special about this group, Scott. So thank you for letting me be here tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for your time. And I would agree. I mean, it is a great community, and I'm sure there's a lot of other, industries that have these kind of same, communities like this. But at the end of the day, I mean, this is kind of ours, and it's fun. It does. And I would agree, probably as much as you say, kind of, it allows, even though you're in the whiskey industry, this is still something different. It's almost like a virtual, like, happy hour where you can kind of be yourself, have a good time, and then we can all still chat a little bit of whiskey and kind of just have fun. There's nothing pretentious, nothing serious about anything, and it's for me, it is a nice little outlet to have with everything that I kind of do. But hey, while you're now kind of calmed, hopefully you've got nice little pour of Sagamore of some sort there. There you go. Perfect.
I don't know if you recognize.
Look at that fancy little glass you got.
This is one of a great glass. I don't know if you're familiar with this particular glassware, but just settled in, just poured a Sagamore bottled in bond, and I think I'm ready now.
That's actually what I've got in my glass, and we'll get into that too. So, all right. So for maybe a few of the people that have not had the pleasure of meeting you, or kind of, hearing a little bit about you, can you take just a couple minutes and maybe share just a little bit about yourself, and then we'll kind of get into the gist of everything else.
Yeah, let me just pull up what I put on my dating app, and then
yeah. Is that the one you swipe left or swipe right?
Yeah.
Or yeah.
I actually don't have any of them, like, but I just always feel like this is kind of that moment, right? Like, I'm I don't know, man. I like myself in a nutshell. It just I really think of myself as just as a typical person. Like, that's for sure. Like, I love socializing. I love hanging out with people. I was very fortunate to have fallen into this position. So everyone wants to know my history before Sagamore. Was I involved in the whiskey industry or the spirits industry? And the answer is no. My background really prior to this was just entrepreneurship and starting other businesses. And so prior to this, I grew up in Maryland, but when I graduated high school, I really just didn't think college was for me. And so I picked up and decided to move out west. And I lived in Lake Tahoe, then Breckenridge and Telluride and Steamboat and Crested Butte, and kind of bounced around for a while and got a little skiing in. And then eventually, moving around out west, I broke down in a little place called Flagstaff, Arizona. And at that time, I decided, it was about age 24. and I was like, maybe college would be good, you know. And I bumped into a couple folks that kind of talked me into that, and they said, you know, Northern Arizona University, really small classes, good people. You know, like some of the classes you only had 5, 6, 7 people in. And so I decided to go to college, graduate from NAU, wrote a business plan while I was in NAU about doing a kind of outdoor retail camping store and a guide service. And I was working at the time in a outdoor store where we sold backpacks and hiking boots and tents and rafts and everything in between. And then, but when I graduated college, it's like, now I'm supposed to grow up. That's what you're supposed to do. You graduate college, you need to grow up. And so I moved to Boulder, Colorado, and got a job at Spider Ski Clothing. And I was working in the warehouse, and eventually got a job in accounting. And like, this is what you're supposed to do with your business degree, right? Like your finance degree. And I got in there. I was like, I worked with some nice people. My boss was amazing, but I was like, this is the worst thing ever. So for me, it was, you know, and like the whole Y2K thing going down, I was like, no, I'm relocating back to Flagstaff, and started. And I was like, it was just myself and my dog. And I was like, I got nothing to lose. And my business, my old roommate had already started kind of the outdoor store. I said, let me come in and build out the guiding service. And so moved back to Flagstaff, and, you know, started a company there where we had a store that sold all sorts of camping gear. And then we ran guided backpacking, hiking, and kayaking tours in the Grand Canyon, Southern Utah, Yosemite, Grand Staircase, Escalante. And it was great. Did that for about 14 years, lived in Flagstaff for about 19 years total. But eventually this opportunity came one day, and someone called me and said, I got this crazy notion. Any chance you'd be interested in starting a whiskey distillery with me? And I was like, I like crazy concepts. Like I tried a desk job once, and it really wasn't for me. So like, I'll do anything outside the norm. And in 2012, 2013, came back to Maryland and started Sagamore Spirit. And then 2016, we finally launched our first product ever. And 2023 on January 24th, I did a live stream with Scott from My Bourbon Journey. So here we are.
It was pretty awesome. And I'll tell you, you know, just kind of going back to that whole, you know, the thing you're supposed to do when you kind of grow up, you know, sometimes I think when you think back to that time when you kind of live a little bit like loose and free, you're not quite sure what responsibility and stuff is. You know, I think a lot of the younger generation now have maybe kind of figured it out a little better than some of the old timers like me, I'll say, is there's a lot to be said about enjoying your life and like just letting some of the pieces come together like naturally without all of it being so forced, you know? So, I mean, that's my opinion. And I've kind of come up with that a little bit more, I think, as I've got older, where there's other things that become maybe more of a priority than just all the things that all of us, you know, seem to, you know, want as, you know, as we do. But anyway, I'm not going to go down that whole path or whatever, but you know,
yeah, I agree. Like, I'm in my 50s. So like we were just told, like, you go do this, and then you're supposed to do this, and you're supposed to do this. Yep. And then finally somebody raised their hand one day and say, why?
Yeah.
And I think, you know, so I'll segue in that into like, this is always the way we made whiskey. And I think in the last 10 years, people started saying why. And now we have so much great whiskey out in that market. And so I'll segue there.
Well, you know, and that you do. And I would say, you know, going back a couple of years ago, like when we were kind of, you know, first introduced, you know, it was a newer brand to me. And I kind of fell into it pretty hard because, I mean, immediately when you're trying this, and I have to always say, I give Dusty Dan Trout all the credit, because early on, this is probably even maybe 3+ years ago, he sent me a bottle of the port finished rye, and it to this day is not only one of my favorites, but maybe my wife's favorite overall. And you are, I would say, your rye, that rye specifically, is probably what got her into enjoying whiskey. Maybe not as much as I do, but it allowed her to appreciate what a good whiskey was. So that was kind of her gateway to starting to enjoy things. But it was nice to have a whiskey that had a good finish, was approachable, good proof, all of that. Because if I would have given her something that would have been a big old high proof monster, it would have probably been a different story. But that was a great whiskey to have as an introduction. And now she's, semi okay with me buying whiskeys, not all the time, of course, but that got her wanting to go to Kentucky and the Bourbon Trail and doing all that. So yeah, you were pretty much the gateway into her starting to kind of enjoy her bourbon journey, so to speak.
That's very cool. That's an honor. Yeah. That's really cool. Yeah. And it was lucky to meet you. I mean, we're 6 years old. And I'm, we met you 3 years ago. So you met you halfway through our journey. And so it's one of those things. And and Dusty Dan, shout out to you, my friend. Local supporting local. We always have a joke, Maryland loves Maryland. But it is like, if you can't win in your backyard, you're not going to win anywhere else. And Maryland has been incredibly good to us. And Dan's been a great supporter since day one, as many of you have been. But we're just lucky. And, at the end of the day, too, like coming from my industry prior, where we were backpacking and our job, our number one job was to provide you an experience that was memorable. And hospitality is a big part of that. And when I look around today and I look at what everybody's doing, and I look at what you guys are doing, and I look at people's visits in Kentucky and other distilleries and beyond. And what I love is there's so many distilleries I'm seeing on social media that are outside of Kentucky as well now. And what I'm seeing is experiences and hospitality, right? And so I don't come from the whiskey industry, but I certainly have a love and a passion for trying to provide somebody a great experience and some great hospitality. And I see all the other brands doing that too. So which is great. It's the right way. It's the right approach. Yeah. And because you just have to, the people that support you, it's just a great way of it's the easiest way of saying thank you, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I would agree 100% with that. And I still think there's lots of people within the whiskey industry that are slow or slower to catch on to that. And I think what it is you're doing, embracing the community and allowing everyone to come in, can only be a positive thing for your company. So I think it becomes a real win-win. It not only allows you to kind of dive into what it is that we all enjoy, which you are that part of it as well. You enjoy whiskey just as you would, if you didn't have a whiskey brand, you'd probably still enjoy it as much as we all do,
Yeah.
But having the ability to have people to the distillery or do live streams or whatever it may be, that is for me like gold in this industry. And honestly, there's not a lot of people you can reach out to that would do this. I mean, they wouldn't call me from their car frantic because they're not going to be here at 8:00. I mean, hey, I appreciate that. Like, I mean, I really do. Like, it's a really cool thing, and I get all of that, but and I enjoy that. I love the personal side of all of these things. So thank you. I mean, thank you for all of that. I mean, thank you for allowing us to be part of what it is that you do as well. So let's do this. Let's go back to kind of a little bit of the beginning of when you were kind of creating some of the whiskeys, and talk a little bit about the brand and what the concept was at that point, as to why. I kind of know, but I want you to kind of explain it. But why just rye whiskey and maybe not also source some bourbon to kind of, tackle both sides of that fence?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And give full transparency on anything and everything. So, questions, shoot away. So came in, let's just say, by the time I relocated from Arizona, it was spring of 2013. And we immediately started working, obviously, with MGP, right? And so and the reason for that was we were laser focused on whiskey, and specifically rye whiskey, because Maryland itself as I'm sure many of your viewers know because they're so well educated through all the different channels, is Maryland has a great history of distilling rye. And, you know, if you go back to 1600s, Maryland was really predominantly rum at the time. 1733, you fast forward, you have the Molasses Tax Act, where we started hitting the molasses and sugars coming out of the British West Indies with taxes and tariffs. Baltimore, second largest site for immigration. We have the Inner Harbor here. So we had a tremendous amount of folks coming into Baltimore through the Inner Harbor that were from Germany, Poland, Scotland, Ireland, who knew how to distill grain-based type products. We grew a tremendous amount of rye as a cover crop in our tobacco fields. And then, you know, really the birthplace of American rye whiskey, which was specifically rye whiskey, is that Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania area, that mid-Atlantic. And there was Monongahela style like Pennsylvania, and there was Maryland style. And the fact that even Basil Hayden and Marion Jacob Beam actually have their distilling roots here in Maryland. But, you know, the Whiskey Rebellion and so forth, and those taxes and tariffs that came in again after the Revolutionary War ran them off to places that weren't developed, but it would eventually be called Kentucky. We just thought it was fascinating, you know, that in 1910, you have 44 distilleries in Maryland, 21 in downtown Baltimore, all making whiskey. We didn't acknowledge prohibition. It's one of the reasons Maryland's called the Free State. Mm-hmm. And then again in 1933, you get hit with the Agricultural Act, and they basically pay farmers. They start subsidizing corn, pay farmers to stop growing rye, and ethanol production didn't scale up for World War II. And then the last distillery closed its doors in Maryland in 1980, 82 kind of thing. They stopped producing whiskey in the 70s, but officially closed the doors in the early 80s and sold that name off to Heaven Hill and Pikesville Rye. And just kind of sat here and said, you know, this for decades, the identity of Maryland rye, the brand and the style of Maryland rye whiskey could live on without actually anybody in Maryland doing it. Yet, which I love, like other amazing brands like Leopold Brothers and other folks in New England, and then the brands in Kentucky wanted to buy up those names. It just said, Jiminy Crickets, like you're sitting here, like, why isn't Maryland doing this? So we wanted to get Maryland back its rightful place in distilling history with rye whiskey. We also knew it was a really shitty business plan, if you will, sorry. But like basically to spend 4 years building and designing a distillery and 4 to 5 years building, aging whiskey, and say 10 years later, we'll sell our first product. Nobody can do that. And we didn't want to sell you a vodka while telling you all about Maryland rye whiskey. So we worked with MGP. And we were lucky enough to work with Larry Ebersold. I could call him the godfather of rye whiskey. Distilled more rye whiskey than I think anybody has ever in this world has ever distilled. And we were very, very fortunate enough with him. I met him in a parking lot at the Jim Beam Distillery on July 7th, 2013. And we spent the day together. And it was a wild day. And he tested me beyond belief. And at the end, he's like, I think he tried to run me off. And I was like, you can't run me off, man. I'm in. like let's work together.
Yeah. Well, you hooked up with a guy who's like not only a good guy, but man, what a wealth of information that is. Holy moly.
I think he's the most underrated name in the business, and has touched more brains than people ever realize. And I'm sorry, I got a dog that once in the room and then out of the room and in the room and out of the room for just.
I know how it goes. But yeah, as you guys can see, I mean, Sagamore has all the ties, I mean, especially Maryland and the rye story. You can see naturally from Brian's side of things why they'd want to latch on to that. One other thing I was going to ask you, was there ever any thought of reintroducing like a dead brand rather than creating a whole new brand and kind of revitalizing an old brand that, you know, anything ever like that?
No, you know, and we've seen it, and perhaps that would have been the smarter and easier route. Yeah. But you know, you also don't know the history behind these brands. Like the history of this country isn't always pretty, right?
Right.
And then you potentially could latch yourself to a brand or a name that eventually something could come out about down the road that you had no idea. And then kind of what do you do?
Yeah.
Versus just saying there's a history here. We're going to tip our hat, old meets new. and give the folks prior to us, obviously, like our goal is to give them the credit they deserve and kind of just take and pass that baton on to us and see if we can't get it going. And of course, there's other distilleries in Maryland doing it, and they're doing it well as besides just Sagamore. But that was kind of the idea. There's history behind brands that you don't always know, which leads to a little bit of risk.
Well, let's kind of spring forward a little bit. Let's get into maybe what you're sipping on and what I'm sipping on too, as to the new-ish, I'll say, bottled and bond. Let's talk about the prior batch, and then the new batch, and we'll kind of see. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the production of that and kind of where and why you wanted to kind of create that as part of the lineup.
Yeah, no, as we mentioned, like obviously, MGP was a great partner. We really enjoyed working with them, but we built the distillery for a reason, right? You want to own everything from start to finish, which is also why we're now taking over, like not taking over, but like we're working with 4 different farms in Maryland growing our own grain. So like the more you can say in and the more you can control, we feel the better the outcome.
Yeah.
And MGP was a great partner, but we built our distillery, we built it a certain size. We have 9 6,500-gallon fermenters. So there was always these rumors people would build distilleries, but they still really work with MGP, and they make 1 barrel here, but 14 barrels come from here. And it's just like, no, we're not going to do that. And actually, and I'm not trying to start rumors. That was just kind of like what people said out there. I've never actually seen that, but and if it is, it's like, that's great. That's their business plan and that's their business model. That's what works well for them. There's nothing wrong with that, right? In my opinion, as long as they're sharing that information with their consumers. And so, but after working with MGP from 2013 till 2017, and having all of our whiskey basically made there till about basically January 2017. Mm-hmm. And then our distillery came online just March of 17. And then the product itself, obviously, we like most of our products range from 4 to 8 years in age, depending on what you're looking at. Mm-hmm. We thought when we finally had a 4-year-old whiskey, I can't think of a better way to put a stake in the ground and say that and show our commitment that we really are going to become 100% Maryland distilled, 100% Maryland aged whiskey, which was our goal and our business model from the day one. Then saying, here's a bottled and bond. So our first ever product that we released that was 100% Maryland distilled, Maryland aged was a 4-year-old bottled and bond, and that was in 2021 November. Yeah. And then this last year we just released our second release of it, which was a 5-year-old. Bottled and bond. And next year, as you can probably speculate, it will be a 6-year-old bottle and bond.
Yeah.
And I don't want to promise anything or go much past that, but we think our bottled and bond is going to really shine 6 or 7 years old. And that's kind of like what our goal is, to kind of get to that level. And it's been a very limited release. So if you see a bottle, I think you're fairly lucky. There's not a lot of it out there because we're holding back to ideally go bigger. But if we keep going bigger now, we can't go bigger later.
Right. Yeah. And it's a beautiful whiskey. What I always like is, and I was saying to Jason the other day, what I really appreciate how you guys do the blending part of it is by using that kind of that blend that you do. And I think they really work well together. And it's something that's slightly different than really what anybody else does, that allows for the backbone of a rye whiskey to be there, but yet that kind of rich, buttery, like sweetness of a rye that really kind of work well together. So I think the balance of what it is you guys do is spot on. And it makes it a rye that I think is approachable for anyone who appreciates like a really nice rye, that's there. And then for anybody who thinks, I'm not sure if I really enjoy rye, when they try it, there's the sweetness factor, which I think sweetness in whiskey always helps for someone who maybe isn't sure if they're going to like it or not. So I think it's a a perfect marriage of the two that creates a beautiful whiskey. I mean, and again, at 5 years old, which I wouldn't consider young at all, it really shines. It's a really, really nice rye whiskey. So,
Well, thank you. And it was crazy for us. Like, I mean, I guess we should be totally perplexed. That's why we're shooting for a 6 or 7 year old bottle and bond.
yeah.
But like, we were very proud of the 4-year-old, and like the 4-year-old was great. And then like, but then you try the 5-year-old, and you're like, it goes to show you what a year can do in a barrel.
Couldn't agree more.
It's wild, like how much more depth you get out of it. And I appreciate you speaking to the two mash bills. Like, you know, we distill 95% rye, 5% malted barley, and we distill kind of the opposite end of the spectrum. We distill one that's 52% rye, 43% corn, 5% malted barley. And there isn't a single product that we have on the market that doesn't have both of those in it. And we love the ability, like we think blending's an art, and one that not everybody fully understands. It kind of almost had like a bad connotation associated with it at one point.
Yeah.
Where it was like, you think Seagram 7, like
right.
blending is because I'm putting in GNS, and I'm putting in light whiskey, and I'm putting in bourbon, and I'm putting in rye, and I'm putting in whiskey in there that was in used barrels. And trust me, Seagram 7 did just fine on sales. But like, it was just like, it was one of those things where we thought it was like a beautiful balance of being able to bring that rye spice in and then layer it in with kind of this depth of fruit and floralness, which Maryland was known as. That, like, you nailed it, is what we consider to be this approachability.
Yeah.
And which has a lot of versatility to it. And then having multiple mash bills allows us to have a lot of fun throughout our product line, specifically the Reserve Series.
I would say with this new bottle and bond, I mean, like you said before, you kind of nailed it, which was, you know, how much of a difference a year can make. And it really does. I mean, I'll say for me, from the 4 to the 5, you know, the amount of like more kind of fruit notes that kind of came out in it, little richer, maybe a little bit more like complexity that was there. Maybe even a little bit more of that baking spice, more for me specifically, became a little bit more of like a nutmeg kind of note. I don't know what it is about it, but it really kind of settled in for me like pretty early on. And I knew that it was just a rye you could sit down with. And I don't want this to sound bad, but you don't have to think about it, meaning you know what you're going to get. Like, I knew that I was going to drink a really nice whiskey, and I didn't have to think about it. But you still get your layers that kind of come as you sip on it. So I think it was an absolutely home run release that you guys had this year with it. So
thank you. And I'll take, you don't have to think about it as like the ultimate compliment, right? After a long day, like, I'm done thinking, I'm done doing anything. I just want to pop a cork and sit down.
Yeah. Well, and this is what you kind of grabbed. You know, you kind of know what this is, and you can sip on it. It's a great proof. It's a great sipper. I mean, you can use it for, you know, cocktail. I mean, whatever. I hate to always say that, because I think some people feel like you're slighting them by saying that you could use it in cocktails. But I mean, hey, if you're willing to sip on it, I think, you know, you can make a cocktail with it. I mean, if it's from that standpoint. So I think you guys did an absolutely fantastic job with this. And I can't wait to see, I mean, again, if you keep pushing it up every year for a new bottle and bond, and I mean, keep pushing the envelope. I know you can't produce a bunch of old whiskey very quickly. We all know that. So at some point, you got to pump the brakes. So, but
yeah, we always said you can't Amazon Prime whiskey. We tried.
That you can't. And I mean, even going back to the release that you guys had of that 8 year, what a sneaky good whiskey that was. I mean, it was a surprise. Yeah, another fantastic whiskey. And I think for a lot of people were absolutely surprised and blown away by how good that one was. But I give you guys a lot of credit for now doing your own thing. You've got your stamp, your Maryland stamp on it. This is what we're doing. This is the direction we're going. So, you know, kudos to you guys for finally putting something out there that's yours, and at the same time doing a fantastic job with it. So kudos to you guys for that.
Thank you, and thank you for the 8-year call out. Just so everybody knows, the Spring Reserve that will be coming out in March is another 8-year. And so,
really,
yep.
All right, good to know. Oh, there you go. A little inside information for everybody.
Inside information is everything. Like this Spring Reserve series will be another 8-year, and we're excited about the bottles themselves as far as the core, the straight rye, double oak, and cask. Probably by the end of this year, we're going to be very, very close to a lot of it being almost 100% Sagamore.
Really good for you.
Maybe one expression by early 2024, one of them might be there, and then it's just months after that. Like we love, like when you look at our cash strength,
yeah.
I think we dump about 17 barrels of 7-year-old and 4 barrels of 4-year-old into that.
Really?
So just to kind of give you an idea of the blend. And the fact that our distillery didn't start distilling until 2017, we know that we love the 7-year-old component of that. So, we just have to be patient and wait there. We're not far off. But that's kind of what's holding off on it. Yeah, I mean, basically 17 of the 22, 21 barrels is 7-year-old whiskey in it. And so, once we become 7 and 8 years old, everything is us.
And you're really getting into like an absolutely great, I mean, when you start getting into that 7, 8, upwards of 10-year ages on rise, I mean, it's just like a whole other world. I mean, that's just how rye changes when they start to get into those ages just becomes, I mean, for me, one of my favorite whiskeys. I love when you start getting into those kind of ages of rise. They just do something different and kind of show a different kind of backbone, so to speak, to what it is that they do. So I'm looking forward to everything you guys do. I mean, I know the passion, the energy, everything you guys put into it. I mean, I know you're not going to release anything unless it's absolutely, to your standard. So, again, great job on all that.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. So all right, let's talk a little bit about the Reserve series. So I know people love your finished whiskeys, and I'm right in that category. I mean, I absolutely loved it. I mean, for me, your sherry this year, one of my favorite whiskeys, maybe period overall. What you did with this sherry was, and for a lot of people, kind of blew our minds when we got into it. We're like, holy shit, like this thing is a really, I thought, like, can it be this good? As I was sipping on it, I'm like looking to kind of pick it apart a little bit, but I'm like, nope, this thing just keeps staying like right in this wheelhouse that I love for a finish. And however you decided, or whoever it was that was responsible for pulling this when you did and blending this, did an absolutely incredible job, in my opinion, of putting together a well finished rye whiskey. So again, kudos to you for specifically that sherry. So
thank you. Like that sherry, and I'm always like, oh, it's just you're a little bought in. So, but I do love that sherry. That sherry goes up as one of my all-time favorites. There's the Calvados and the cognac and maybe Manhattan, and like I could go on and on, but like, what I want to do, Scott, if I could just pause for a minute, and like let everybody know, like the inside, the ugly side of whiskey, if you will, but also the folks I work with, their incredible dedication to delivering quality, and that when it comes to operations, our team, I don't want to say doesn't give a shit about sales, but like they get their heart is completely in on all things quality, right? And so this was a 4-year-old rye, went into sherry casks, and then we had a similar situation with the Calvados. And then when it was time to bottle, so this came out a year late, and so when it was time to bottle, they came We sat in a room, and I could tell the look on their face, they weren't happy. Tried the sherry finish at the time and had a very interesting tannic bite to it. Something that I didn't love, they didn't love.
At what point of the finish was that roughly?
I should know that off the top of my head, but I don't. So I don't want to misspeak.
Okay.
But that was pretty far into it. That might have been almost the full 13 months.
Okay.
We had all the sherry notes we wanted, but we had picked up something from the barrel that we didn't necessarily want.
Mm-hmm.
And so then we said, we can't release it. And of course, our sales team, rightfully so, said, well, what are we supposed to do to backfill that? And we said, we're not sure. Let us get back to you. And, there's a lot of panic, and we have goals that we want to reach as far as revenue and sales. But that isn't the ultimate driving. Quality is the ultimate driver. And at the end of the day, we said, we're not releasing this, and got together with ops team. And we said, we did notice we're sitting on quite a bit of 8-year-old barrels. And we said, the Reserve Series has never released something that wasn't finished. It was just an age-stated whiskey. What a crazy concept. What if we just did that? And that was the reason for the original release of the 8-year. It was to backfill the sherry finish that was supposed to go out. So we immediately dumped those 8-year-old barrels, bottled the 8-year, put it out. Again, probably one of my favorite products of all time as well. Put the rye barrel, we took the sherry barrels, dumped them, and put them back into the freshly dumped 8-year barrels.
Interesting.
And let them settle out. And just a little bit of time, we ended up captivating what I think is one of our best releases ever, where we got the sherry notes, we got the really beautiful balance of like this beautiful soft rye spice and these beautiful sherry notes at that 103 proof. And this beautiful finish, this beautiful mouth, like velvety mouth finish and feel to it. I'm really proud of the team for speaking up and saying, like, you're doing ourselves a disservice and everybody's hard work by saying we should release this just for revenue. And it's not about revenue, it's about great whiskey. And that's what I love about the team that I work with, is that's their priority, is releasing great whiskey and not necessarily revenue. And at the end of the day, what they did is they ended up coming away with a beautiful whiskey. And I appreciate that. And I always say, it's great. We don't sell tomatoes. Like, so just when in doubt, just leave it in the warehouse longer. Like, it's not like there's an expiration date on this stuff necessarily. It does evaporate away and you can get a little oaky, but overall, we're a very young company. We're far from having those issues of like, oh, it's too old and it's too oaky and it's almost all evaporated. It's like, no, we're 6 years old, 7 years old, like, just like, we don't have those issues. So I just like, I don't know if anybody from the team's listening, but again, I just want to thank and kind of call out in full transparency of like the ugly side of whiskey. But at the same time, when you have those patience and those disciplines in place, you can come away with a beautiful whiskey.
That's a huge deal, because I don't think there's a lot of companies where a lot of what it is they do. Now, don't get me wrong, everyone's in the business to make money and profit and all of that. But to have the people in place that are willing to step up and say, I don't think this is ready to go. Like, and to have the consensus be that, and then, the people who are in charge of making that call appreciate those kind of the honesty, I'll say, that, because they easily could have said, oh yeah, BT, it's ready to go. Good. Great job again, put it out there. And then if it's not the fine or the representation that you wanted, because you were more concerned with just the revenue, now you did yourself a disjustice. You let this thing go a little bit longer. It leveled itself out and became, again, if not the best whiskey you've done, very, very darn close, because it is an absolutely, not even just a great whiskey that I had last year or the year before. It's one of the better whiskeys I've ever had. And there's not a lot of whiskeys that can fall in that category. So all of that combined with what it was that you guys did, contributed to you being able to have the opportunity to put out a whiskey like that. So, I mean, great job to you and everybody else who was part of that release right there.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, we got lucky on that one in some ways, but at the same time, I love, you gotta have discipline, you gotta have focus, and you gotta know what you're trying to strive for. And I think, as far as as the leadership of a company or something like that, if the team starts thinking you have one thing in mind, you don't have the team's buy-in. But if you have the team's buy-in on I believe in you, you have to, everything's about trust.
Yeah.
And if you can't trust the team and you can't trust a brand, whatever it may be, it's a dead end. It's a dead end.
Yeah. Yeah. That was, beautiful. You get that slight kind of nuttiness that you kind of get from a sherry, but those really nice rich fruits, that chocolate and cherry, not raspberry. Well, maybe a little bit of raspberry, I'll say, but
nice
like a raisin, like a chocolate raisin. Again, the baking spice that's there. There's that richness. It's such a rich, and it's so easy to drink that you can get yourself in a lot of trouble really quickly with that thing. You have to kind of pump the brakes because you want to just drink it like it's, an 80 proofer, and you can't, but it has the balance and richness and complexity of all that. So you have to pump the brakes with something. And naturally you want to do it because you don't have that much of it. So you don't want to drink it as fast as you would some other brand. So I don't know. It's a very good problem to have, I suppose, but
that's hilarious. I've been there. So thank you for that.
Yeah, it's a tough one. So, and one thing I wanted to mention, so this was something as part of our, I'll kind of shift a little bit away from specifically the whiskey, but I guess I wanted to say on, my and probably Jason's behalf, and I know he's in here right now, but with your willingness to work with us to allow us to come out there as Mash and Journey and host kind of a spring fling, it couldn't have been, I don't think, a more perfect situation and scenario that you allowed us to come out there, and then you and everyone who works, for and with you, the amount of time that they're spending to allow us to do this, we really truly appreciate, that opportunity to be able to get a lot of people, hopefully from around the country, together, and to not only showcase, what it is that we do as a club, and our channels and all that, but what it is more importantly that you do as a whiskey brand. So I couldn't be more excited to get out there in May to do this. So thanks for allowing, us to work with you on all of that.
Oh, you gotta be kidding me. Come on now. You guys calling us and saying any interest in this? We think what you guys are doing is great, and I'd love to bring people to your place and let them know what you're doing and work together. It's was really flattering. So thank you for that opportunity. And I think it brings us back, full circle to where we kind of started this conversation. And just, it's a great group of people that constantly support each other. And it's really about hospitality and experiences and just kind of sharing a glass of whiskey with a friend, and sharing a story and having some laughs and kind of disconnecting for a little bit from the nonsense. And we're super excited about May and having you guys here. I'm ecstatic.
Yeah, it'll be great. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head with that. It really is. It becomes the perfect environment to have a lot of people there who are interested in not only us, but hopefully, more if they're a little unaware, then that gives you more exposure. But at the end of the day, it really is all about, community and getting together and sharing those experiences. So we're super excited for that. So
more to come, right? More to come.
Definitely more to come. So if anyone who's listening wasn't aware of us doing our Mash and Journey Spring Fling out at Sagamore, that will be the Friday and Saturday prior to Mother's Day. So Friday night will be, and again, we're going to do tickets and all of that. There's a little more to come on some of those things, but it'll be a great Friday and a great Saturday between the distillery and the Sagamore farm. There's a lot of moving parts going on, but it'll be a really, really fun weekend, and it'll be really nice to finally meet, hopefully, a lot of you guys and ladies. So that'll be awesome. So
yeah, to meet you all and see you all. And I'll say the shameless plug, like, smash the like button, subscribe now, and be a Patreon. Like, and so if this sounds of interest and you're not, like, you're missing out, but you got to play the role, you got to be there. Like, do it up. Come on now, here's your opportunity.
Checks in the mail. Appreciate that. So, no, that'll be good. Yeah, I got that $4.99 coming right your way. So hold tight on that. So, all right, so let's do this. So we're about 55 minutes in, and I know you've got other things to do, but let's quickly talk maybe slightly about what the future of Sagamore looks like, and kind of where you see things going in the next kind of handful of years for you.
Oh man,
I know it's a tough one.
That is a tough one. Sagamore. Let me think here. I apologize. Like, there's a lot to unpack there, or how do I? It's like, I know you've got great discipline. Like, you typically, like, 9 o'clock, I wind down, like, right.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, Brian, be respectful of that.
Hey, if you want to stay on here and shoot the shit all night long, I'm good to go. We could just sit here and ignore everybody else. If you there you go, you got more than that. So, hey, I'll say this, even before we even get into that, if there's any other things you want to share about, the brand, the whiskey, any of that. I mean, I love the open format of things. So if there's something that I didn't even, touch on, and hey, I'm an open book, and I want you to be as much as you're willing to be to share whatever it is you want about Sagamore. I think the people would enjoy that. So,
well, I appreciate that, and I welcome questions from the chat. But like, I guess, like, I don't want to say hesitation, but like where I am is perhaps it's not that sexy in some ways. Like, as young as we are, we've done a tremendous amount, but like, we're at a junction where we just say, stay the course, discipline, stay focused. We have our, everyone's like, where are all these other products? And it is tempting to start working on other products. But at the end of the day, very, very few people really know who we are. And so we're continuing to drive our 3 core products. We're continuing to try and challenge ourselves on the innovation of the Reserve series. We are obviously, like, and kind of laugh it up, if you will, but like, we have these beautiful premium canned cocktails that are made with 2 to 4 year old rye whiskey, which I just don't think anybody's doing. That's made with all natural organic ingredients.
My assistant just brought me these, by the way. My assistant doesn't like when I call her that, because it's my wife, but
well, she's the brains of the bunch.
She is definitely the brains of the bunch, because these things right here have got me and us in a lot of trouble sitting out on our deck. I'll tell you that right now. But if you guys, I'll say this is a shameless plug right now, but if you can somehow get these, and the only reason we knew about these was when we were out a couple years ago at Sagamore, we got to try these when we were out. And I'll tell you what, these things right here may have contributed a little bit to not feeling the greatest the next day, only from the standpoint of they're so easy to drink and enjoyable that they are maybe the best RTDs you guys will have. So
they're dangerous. They're 7 and 9% ABV. So like, they do sneak up on you for sure. But like, we're finally going nationwide with them this year in the variety pack. So like, we are very excited about that. But it's just like everything we do. Like, that was 18 months of development. Like, we worked with King Collective, 2 of the best mixologists we've ever met in the Baltimore region, if not the country, that helped us conceptualize, like, what are great cocktails that are delicious and have depth and character. and work well with rye whiskey. And again, we're not putting new make in there. We're not putting 6-month old whiskey in there. It's all straight rye whiskey. And a lot of people say we're crazy for doing that, and I'm kind of calling BS on that. I think it's important. I think it's if you're going to put I'm going to take the time to put all natural, organic, and natural ingredients into it, but not and then put White Dog in it. Like, let's go all the way and let's do it. And so we're very focused on. We have a lot going on. We got our 3 core products. We have a line of premium canned cocktails, and we have the Reserve series. And then we've got to continue to focus on. We're in a very important transition right now, like moving out of MGP and into your own make. Can't be you can't underestimate the importance of that. You get the chance to do that one time. And if you F that up, you're done.
Yeah.
And so it's just I don't know, I'm going to date myself here, but new Coke, classic Coke. It's just there's repercussions for making changes, right? And so we're very, very cautious of the way we approach that and trying to be very smart about the way we approach that. And so I just think as a young brand trying to have discipline and focus may not seem that exciting at the same time. And then the only other thing is we started our local sourcing program, our grain to glass program about 5 years ago, where we found out actually no one in Maryland grows rye grain because it's uninsurable and it's incredibly dangerous as far as I'd say dangerous. I should say there's a tremendous amount of risk to it. You can't insure it. You could lose it all. And if you do it as a cover crop, you're kind of maybe at best a break even. And so taking that program on and saying we're not here for farmers to break even. We're here for farmers to profit. And working with them and saying, we understand it's uninsurable. Let us go ahead and we'll go ahead and buy the seed up front so you have no out-of-pocket expense. And you just have your time and labor in the field. We won't hold you to a quality standard. We'll hold you to a quality standard, but not a yield per acre. So we're about quality, but not a yield, and at a price point that makes sense for them to make money, and then leasing property on them. And so how do we scale that up over the next few years and continue? This year we sourced over 1 million pounds of Maryland grown rye, and we get 100% of the non-GMO corn from our own farm at Sagamore. So on top of rye grain. So just how do we continue to build that out? And that might not be something you see so much externally, but it's very important from us as far as supply chain. And again, why would you own your own distillery? You can own everything from start to finish. Why would you get involved with the farmers if you can own everything from start to finish and make sure your farmers are happy and they're making money? And then we're also getting something that we're proud of that works well for our whiskey is a really good thing, we think, long-term and a smart partnership. So that's kind of the focus. So I guess not a tremendous amount of exciting news there, but it's reality.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, I think the transparency. I mean, from the beginning, I think that's one of the main things you guys have kind of latched onto. And you said you were kind of explaining the RTD part of it. I mean, you just read the can. I mean, it's as transparent of everything. It tells you the age of the whiskey. The what you've got in it. I mean, all of it. I mean, everything is right there that tells you, what that is, that it's not just a can of, White Dog with, some flavoring and stuff in it. It really does taste like a quality, drink in a can. This is not like, some of those other little skinny ones that we all kind of know or whatever. I mean, this is I'll say this is a kind of a big boy or big girl kind of RTD, and it tastes like it is. So, great job on those. But, kind of going back to what you were just talking about, I think developing and maintaining those relationships with local farmers where, you rely on them and they rely on you equally. That I think in my experience with really anything in the business world, becomes an absolutely crucial thing for a great, business relationship. When everyone feels like they're winning, that's the best case scenario. And I mean, I give you a lot of credit for as a company taking that approach to making sure that you're taking care of your local people. I mean, you can hear when you talk about Maryland and Maryland history and everybody within the state, you feel almost like you want to take care of these people, that are taking care of you. And, kudos to you for taking that approach. So.
Thank you. Yeah. You got to take care of, starts in your backyard. If you're not taking care of your local communities that are supporting you, why are we doing this?
Yeah, I agree. And that's why I'm kind of in, when we went out there a couple of years ago without having really any idea as what we were going to see, we were blown away. I mean, we couldn't have had a better time. I mean, it was such a fun couple of days, and we saw more things, I think, than we even had an idea of. So that's why we're partially as excited to get other people who maybe have not had that experience to be able to, within a couple of days, see the distillery and then also go out to the farm and see that whole aspect of it, because they're like the complete opposite. You've got the old school, like horse part of it. And then you've got the new kind of bright, shiny distillery stuff. And they're the polar opposites, but at the same time, they work perfectly together, if that makes any sense. So,
yeah, the industry itself is old meets new, right? Like there's so many great new distilleries, right? And we're just kind of picking up on an old tradition, been around and making local economies and communities great for over 250 years in this great country. So like, and now like it's just great. We've gone from basically in the last 15 years, we've gone from 43 distilleries to almost 3,000 distilleries. Like, it's just, and each one provides a really great local economic benefit. But they also, the distilleries, I think, are really great at realizing like, we provide something, but we can't do it without you. So you have to give back and you have to figure out how to make it work. And everything should be thoughtful as far as long-term, right? Like, if you're in this business for short-term, you're in the wrong business.
There's nothing ever short-term, I think, about being able to produce quality whiskey. Like if you're in the whiskey game and you want like a quick return on anything, I mean, you're in the wrong spirit for anything quick. I'll say that. I mean, whiskey is not a short game. That is for sure. And I mean, it's nice because I appreciate your attention to the detail and the wanting the quality over quantity and not, just flooding something to the market because you have to. You're in a good position to allow it to kind of sit and release it when the spirit is right for you. And that's a key thing. So, all right. So let's do a little Q&A. We'll get a couple questions. Timmy's coming in with one first. I know actually before we and I think I know the answer to this, but Jeffrey Wack had mentioned something before about putting kind of like a cigar blend kind of thing together. Is that of mixing some different things? Is that anything that might be on the on the radar ever down in the future at all? So.
It has come up in a conversation because we love the Calvados. Well, we love the cognac finish that we've done. In the sherry finish. We've danced around it, so it's a very fair question. And I kind of said one day, like, have we thought about? And then we shouldn't get caught up in this minutia, but we're kind of like, has everybody already done it? Like, should we do it? Does it feel like we're jumping on something? Then it's kind of like, don't worry about that. If you think you can release something that tastes great, just do it.
Right.
So nothing as of now, but it has been a conversation lately.
Good. Well, I think, I mean, anytime you're pushing the envelope and trying different things, I mean, you never know what will come. But I mean, I think sometimes, probably like lots of things, people have stumbled upon things that absolutely become, something incredible without ever thinking or giving much thought about what it was they were doing. And sometimes you luck into things, and it doesn't always have to be a plan, but just the way it works. But
I think our Manhattan finish is a great example of that. So
what was that?
Our Manhattan finish.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember having it when we were at one of the local watering holes when we were in Maryland, and it was that was the first time I had ever had that, and that was such again another fantastic whiskey. But that reserve series you guys do is incredible. So, but
thank you very much.
Timmy was asking, will you do a cask strength port or sherry finish rye? Anything in the works? Awesome.
I wouldn't rule it out. Our sensory panel is very in depth and goes on for weeks, and and there's always that argument, right? Like, just release it at cask strength, and then we'll figure out what proof it should be, and we'll add a little bit of water here, a little bit of there.
Yeah.
But we try to release what we think whiskeys are at optimal proof, and maybe that's a horrible idea in some ways because that's our palates, but we never rule anything out. We're always start at cask strength, and then we have a wide range of about 10, 12, 15 proof points after that, usually skipping about every 1.5 and then bringing it back in. Bourbon Bill. I think Bourbon Bill's out of Delaware. He's been great.
I think you're right. So yeah, I know, clearly everyone here, a lot of their questions are all around the reserve series. It seems like people clearly love the port. And I know when we were out there last, it wasn't quite ready yet. You said it's coming. But now that it's finally released, everyone who's got their hands on it has clearly enjoyed it. And now everyone who's maybe not had it were like, well, the people who really have had it love it. Now I can't find it. Where the hell do I get this stuff? So
yeah, let me probably do some explaining here on which is I don't want to get egged, but we did a port finish in 2019 that went fairly wide throughout the country. It ended up winning Best Rye Whiskey San Francisco Spirit Competition in 19. So it was quite an honor. Since then, we've been trying to say, how do we do that again? And then on a more local, but we love the fact that a lot of the barrels that we use for that came from a local winery in Maryland called Bordy. Well, Maryland isn't really known for wine. And then when we went to Bordy, who makes a beautiful wine, we said, we need 30 port barrels. And they're like, we're a Maryland winery that makes we do 2 a year. So
that sounds like a bit of a problem.
Yeah. So we've kind of been going back and forth with them on barrels and how to figure this out. So we did re-release the port finish this year. Unfortunately, it was distillery only. It was just about a 9-year-old port finish altogether. So it was 6 years of originally aged rye, followed by almost 3 years finishing the port barrels. And now we have a bunch behind that, and we do see it as an annual release. There is a massive internal debate right now whether you do one release and go national, or you do smaller releases over the next several years and create a vertical series and go smaller, but in maybe a couple of markets. So I apologize for that, but the truth is we like working with our local community, and they like Maryland wineries, and especially when it comes to port, we're just not famous for it. So there's not a lot to go around, and maybe we'll reconsider in how we scale that up, but that's where we are today.
Well, I like the idea of also being able to, I mean, as much as it kind of, pains you to say it when you can't get it, but, I like the idea of at least being able to also offer, local people something a little bit special, and I think a lot of distilleries, have kind of caught on to that, and they do that kind of stuff. So, as much as we'd all love to have that, we get it. You're not going to be able to, mass distribute, a port finished, rye around the country with 2 finishing port barrels. You're just not going to do that. So I completely get that. So Justin was asking before, how do you know which finish to try? Market dictate, overall curiosity.
No, market does not dictate. It's full-fledged curiosity, and like as young as we are, we're just trying to learn every single day. So we dedicate 2% of our operational budget to R&D, and R&D is allowed to fail. Like we're too young to think we know anything, and so every single day, how do we learn more? And so like we have endless amounts of like finishes and experiments going on where we're just trying to educate ourselves, and some turn out really, really well. We're like, well, that's quite beautiful. Shall we bottle it? And others remain on the shelf as we learn more as we go.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of the way it is. I mean, I think it's just kind of a natural thing that you see within the world of whiskey, is that, you know, you try some things, you know, some things work, some things don't. And I think if you're waiting for the market to dictate what you're doing, you're probably already so far behind, because you just can't, you know, produce things that quickly to catch on to like either a trend or what the popular thing is now, that if you're not doing what it is you enjoy as a brand and getting out ahead of it, I mean, you're kind of already behind the 8 ball at that point.
Yeah.
You know?
And almost any reserve you see probably went through the distillery 3 years earlier. So the extra añejo tequila, sherry, actually rum, like all those have already gone through the distillery probably 3 years earlier.
Is there anything, I guess, from a whiskey enthusiast standpoint, something that you've maybe not done that you would like to try to do?
Yes, but I haven't told the operations team. So
yeah. Well, we'll just guess that the operations people aren't going to hear that tonight as to what that will be. So, but I'm always
I do think like these cigar blends or these seagrass blends and so forth are very intriguing. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we've been kind of one finish focus. And so I think I love to challenge our team to kind of think about, you know, 3, 4, and let's not get crazy, but like 2 or 3 things that could work well. But at the same time, we've always said, like, you know, it's kind of interesting is we've built this name on this like kind of finishing. And so now we're running with it. But I always said, like, once we get our own whiskey up to 7, 8 years old, we won't need this finishing stuff. And now it's just like, well, shit, like it is pretty good. And
well, I mean, I think it's really good when you never lose the backbone of what the whiskey is. Yeah. You know, when your whiskey just tastes like whatever it is you finish something in, then I think that's always too much. Like I never want to lose the experience of the whiskey with whatever it's finished in. I think that's too much. But I'm sure you guys are on that as well, because clearly what you did with this was the wave of how a good finished whiskey really should be. The backbone of that whiskey is still there with the influence of the finishing barrel. So
1,000%, you nailed it. And so thank you. So I'll just like quickly give you our 2 cents. Is like a rye whiskey finished in whatever it may be should be a rye whiskey with the complementary notes of whatever it may be. And so like that has always been our challenge to ourselves, is a rye whiskey finished in port should not taste like just I'm drinking port. It should be like I have this beautiful rye whiskey with these complementary notes. And so, and easier said than done, but that's what we strive for.
Yeah, and you can still have heavy finishing notes, but still have the backbone of the whiskey. So, I mean, just because something is necessarily finished longer doesn't mean that it's you know, because I think early on when people were finishing things, people felt that they were covering things up. You know, I think that was probably part of it. But now it's just become an accent to what the whiskey is. Not to say there aren't probably people out there who cover things up, because we all know it and we've probably tasted it along the way. But, you know, when you get someone like what it is that you guys do, where you've got a great base and then use some really good finishing barrels, those two kind of, you know, work really well together and, that was a perfect example. So let me ask you this. So Bourbon Bill says the Portland 22 he thinks is better than the 19. What was the difference between the two?
2019 was 4-year-old rye whiskey finished in port barrels for 5 months.
Okay. Oh,
2022 is 6-year-old rye whiskey finished in port barrels for 2 years and 9 months.
Okay. So basically night and day in terms of how that all went.
Yeah,
so,
and I don't want to take away. I think that other one, like I still have bottles, and I occasionally send them out here and there to. But like, yeah, Bill, you nailed it. Like we love 19, and now we're sitting here at 22 and going like, holy shit, man! Like, and it's like, and everyone's sitting around the room going like, really? Like, are we surprised by more time in the barrel? Like, but damn, it's good.
It's very good. It was very good. There was no doubt about that. I think the last couple of finishes that you guys have done have been, I think, a really great representation of where you and the brand are going, and it'll be even more exciting to now see you introducing, more of what you do from a Maryland standpoint, and really starting to kind of gain that traction and allow other people to really understand, hey, this is Sagamore, this is what we're about, and this is where we are. I mean, come along for the ride. I mean, this is where we're at. So I mean, it's exciting, and I'm sure it's even more exciting for you guys as a brand as to kind of how things are kind of leaning. So
yeah, no, I appreciate the opportunity, and we're not that far off from eventually having 100% Maryland rye, distilled in Maryland, aged in Maryland, 100% grain grown in Maryland, and like really having a true 100% Maryland rye whiskey, top to bottom.
It's got to be exciting for you from that standpoint.
That will be there's been several monumental moments, obviously launching the brand on Friday the 13th, 2016, the day we broke ground under distillery, the day we moved into our distillery, the day we filled our first barrel in the distillery. There's just these little monumental moments, but I think as far as our commitment to Maryland, when we finally release a product that's 100% distilled, aged, and 100% of the grain grown in Maryland, will be pretty spectacular for us.
I'll let you answer this one, but so Greg D was asking, is the double oak a rye to rye barrel or a rye to ex-bourbon barrel? I mean, I know the answer, but
it is we take, so the 95.5 and the 52 are aged separately for 5 years. And then we will blend the two together at just about a 60-40 ratio, high rye to low rye. And then we put it back into another new American oak toasted wave stay barrel. So everything at this stage of the game has been always new barrels. I'd be lying to you, though, with the barrel shortage and all the issues we have with barrels coming, and trying to make sure we can pass on the best value to our consumers, that we aren't experimenting with using those barrels twice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, well, I mean, understandably, I mean, I think a lot of people are going to find themselves in that position, and will be, kind of, I don't want to say forced, but the market and the availability of things will dictate what it is you can and have to do. So
yeah, did we really get the most out of a barrel after 18 months, and to sit around and say we finished in this barrel for 18 months, even though it was a brand new American oak barrel, and now we're going to go ahead and let somebody else have it? Yeah. I mean, I don't know. We're too young again. Like I said, we're every day trying to learn. And so we'll see. And the answer may be yes. And if the quality suffers or it's different product, we'll see. But we are actually starting to experiment with reusing that barrel twice. And if I should have shared that and anybody's on operations, I apologize.
Well, well, and I will say, I mean, 18 months. I mean, that's still, I mean, geez, that's still so young. I mean, to not to I guess get rid of it after 18 months and do something else with it and not utilize that for more whiskey. I mean, that's still a fresh, young, new barrel for the most part. I mean, that is,
Yeah. I mean, you have to look at yourself as like sustainability.
Yeah.
Am I doing this just for marketing purposes? And no offense to if marketing's listening, no, nothing should be done for marketing purposes.
Yeah.
And like, so like, is it like sustainability needs to be considered? And then of course, quality is number one, and the flavor profile. But like, if we can figure out how to deliver quality and flavor profile consistently, maybe use the barrel twice and then pass it on, help with sustainability. And then, of course, that only comes back to the consumer as far as the price on the shelf. And we all know we're taking a hit these days on all that crap. And so, like, we're just trying to challenge ourselves, learn as much as possible, and making sure that we can continue to drive and give our consumers the best value for the dollar.
I've always felt, for the most part, that what it is you guys put out on the shelves and even at the distillery is a good price and good value, I think, for what it is you're getting. You know, you're not the upper end of, like, you know, where a lot of other people, you know, maybe you're still in that really nice kind of price point for getting, you know, a super quality product at I guess I'll say a fair price in today's market. So, you know, again, I think that says a lot about you guys as a company, where you're still doing, you know, well, hopefully on the financial part of it, but allowing the consumer to feel like, hey, this is, to me, is a good value. I have no problem paying this price for it. So,
yeah, no, thank you. Like, that's our goal. Like, I mean, we're still working on it, but like, you know, in theory, like our cash strength, which I mentioned, you know, most of like 85-90% of the barrels are 7-year-old into the product. That product we try to get to is $59 to $65 on the shelf.
Yeah, that's pretty good. There's this other little small whiskey tube channel who's in here right now, who's asking about, I don't know if anybody's heard about the mash and drum, but if you haven't, make sure you like and subscribe to his channel, okay? He was asking anyone, he says that anyone asked for a cast strength double oak rye yet? I mean, I think everyone would want it. I know we had touched upon the cast strength before, and again, you know, we all, I think, naturally, cast strength is something that appeals to so many people because it's the natural product in its state. Whatever you do to it, it's not been changed or altered by anything except for at the time of distillation. So, I mean, who wouldn't want a Sagamore double oak cast strength, right?
Well, I mean, first of all, I'm surprised you don't have any mods in here to try and get that guy out of here. But no, you know what's interesting, and Jason, I would be happy to make you part of this program. Is our number one request cast strength double oak, and I will tell you personally. And I would be good to send you guys this and like kind of get your way in, and maybe this will help out. But like, there's something odd about cast strength double oak that I've tried it I've tried it 3 or 4 times, trying to find a love for it, trying to figure out how to say, what can we do with this? This is our number one demand. It's tough. It is a woody, splintery, tough little number.
We might just have to verify that in May.
Like I will have a May blind waiting for me.
I think for everybody who's going to be part of that event in May, I think people are going to leave there like wanting more. Like, I just have a feeling like that's going to be a great time. I know my wife's coming. I know Jason's girlfriend's coming. It's going to be a really great time. So I'm really looking forward to more. For me, it's a lot of times more fun watching other people have like a really good time and experience than it is necessarily for me, especially within the whiskey stuff. I mean, it's important for me to see people, especially if it's an event that we're hosting and putting together, that we want everybody else to have a great time. So I'm looking forward to it more so for other people than just for me. So it'll be a great time. So let's see, what do we have here?
And I can't wait to meet new people. And, I had a great experience last August at the Pours in the Park. And again, just great people everywhere.
It'll be a good one. So, all right. So we're an hour and a half in. We got an extra 30 minutes because I know Brian didn't want to go. He just wanted to chat all night long. So I appreciate that. But I think it gave some more good insight to a lot of everything that you as a company kind of have going on. And I think that's the important part. And I never want to feel like I'm forcing someone to answer a question. And I always appreciate when someone can be candid about just expressing whatever it is that you want to talk about. Because I mean, even in my, I guess I'll say my daily job, even going back and forth, when you have a line of questions, there's oftentimes those questions don't lead to what you want. But when you allow someone the ability to just talk, whether it's good or not, and what I do, sometimes people will talk themselves into things that aren't a great scenario, but a lot of great things will come from just allowing people to express their opinion or their thoughts on a lot of things. So I guess I have to say, thank you for the time. Thank you for what it is that you and Sagamore do for us as a whiskey community. I think it's great. Between the whiskey, the hospitality, all of that is kind of the best package. And I think people are starting to understand that Sagamore isn't just a whiskey brand. It's a community kind of brand as well. And I think you guys welcome that. So,
man, thank you very much. That means a lot to us. We might I'm a little bit of a risk every now and then. We're like, what are you doing tonight? What are you talking to? Because I will try to always be totally honest and we're not always going to be perfect. But we certainly do appreciate everybody who's getting behind us. And we certainly appreciate this whiskey community. We certainly appreciate the opportunity to come on your channel. Again, over the last several years, going back to COVID, when I discovered this entire YouTube, I call Whiskey Tube community. Mm-hmm. It's spectacular. And it's I've got friends here, but I have friends here that I've never met, but they're friends. So, but thank you again for the opportunity. Thank you for us being the opportunity to come on here and tell you a little bit about who we are, in Sagamore. And, it just means the world. And I'm going to stop kind of rambling now, but it's very, very special to be part of this community. And I feel extremely honored, from a business perspective. And then I love it every single day as a person. And there's so many channels and so many good people I've met and exchanged texts with, and you all have educated me, and I think you make us better at the end of the day, honestly. And so thank you for that.
Yeah. Well, it's a great kind of, I'll say, collaboration, and it's more than that. It's a good friendship and all of that. So I think, that's again, kind of circling back to why, we kind of decided that, we wanted to really do something with you guys was, you extended a lot of that friendship to us and made us feel, welcome from that standpoint. I mean, naturally you don't want to gravitate towards somebody who's, grumpy and has a bad attitude and all of that. And you guys are frankly the opposite of that. And it's a really refreshing thing. And I think, again, a lot of people who have not met us, you, whatever, they're going to be in for a really, really fun weekend come May. So thanks again for all that. And again, thank you for the time. I mean, I greatly appreciate, that as well. So, all right, guys, we'll wrap it up. I guess before we do that, where, if anyone wants to find you or Sagamore, where can people find you at?
Yeah, I mean, God, first of all, like, you have this amazing background, and I have the shittiest background. I'm not sure anybody wants to find us.
Yeah. What you probably don't see real quick is, let me take this down. You probably can you see this right here? Can you see this row?
Scott, I look every
okay.
week.
I got that. I'm like, I covered it. My wife sometimes says, sometimes you put that bottle up there and it like blocks a bunch of things. And I said, well, now you can see down here is a whole shelf of nothing but Sagamore stuff.
No, so. I have you're doing great. Thank you. And first of all, like, you can, the basics at Sagamore Spirit, that's going to follow a lot of the channels. We're obviously on Facebook, Instagram at Sagamore Spirit. Big thing too, if you want, go to our website, sign up to become a whiskey thief. If you're a whiskey thief, we typically like to inform you of local events that are specifically just for you and nobody else. We offer sometimes exclusive releases for you and nobody else. And if anything, you're the first to know of anything before anybody else. So, but, again, thank you very much for the opportunity. Amazing group of people. You guys and Scott and Jason and everybody beyond what you have built is spectacular. And I'm speaking on behalf of I don't want to speak on behalf of all the people in the chat, but thank you for building what you all have built and letting us be part of this and just making an average fucking Tuesday night great.
Yeah, I hear you. There's not a lot that's special about Tuesday nights, but I figured, like, even going back to like when I first started this thing on Tuesday night, there was like literally nobody else doing Tuesday nights. And I always thought, I'm like, man, what does anyone have going on a Tuesday night? You can find just about any Joe Schmo who doesn't have anything going on a Tuesday night. Maybe they'll hop on and listen to some chump like me ramble on for an hour and a half, whatever it may be. So anyway, well, thank you again, Brian. Thanks for jumping on here tonight. I greatly appreciate it. Everybody in the chat, as always, thank you so much for being here, being a part of this. And again, I wanted to get Brian on here to kind of just chat, let everyone else know a little bit more about Sagamore, what it is that they have going on, what's coming up, what we're going to be doing. So, kind of stay tuned. We'll let out a few more details to the event in May. It'll probably be something that's released to our patrons and people will support us a little bit like right away, but then maybe leak it into the kind of general population, I guess I'll say. So kind of stay tuned with all of that. We want it to be big and fun and allow you guys to have a great experience. So that's first and foremost. So, all right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Greatly appreciate it. Again, Brian, thanks for tuning in for being part of this tonight. Greatly appreciate it. And yeah, guys, we'll see you next Tuesday with something. Remember, it's about the journey and not the destination. Cheers, guys, and we will see you next Tuesday. See ya.